All right.
I think it takes. All right, great. Welcome back to everybody's favorite variety show, the Power Lunch series of 1,000 Conversations. This is a project of the Green New Deal that aims to engage all of you in a conversation around the future of Ithaca. And I am, as always, your lovely and charming host, Rebecca Evans, Sustainability Planner with the City of Ithaca. And this series focuses kind of on the geekier side of the Green New Deal. We're talking about like tech, economics, funding, electrification, and jobs, all the stuff that really makes the Green New Deal tick. And fear not, we have some Class A geeks here to talk about it today. So join us Tuesdays now at noon. Our Wednesday power lunch is now a Tuesday power lunch at noon until 12:45, where we'll talk about all sorts of stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Our conversation today is about other people's money, private capital, and how we can leverage that for the Green New Deal. And with us today, we have Tommy Freeman, associate with Alturus, and the latest and greatest partner in the city's electrification program, and proof that not all heroes wear capes. And back again, of course, is our very own mad scientist, director of sustainability, Luis Aguirre-Torres. So welcome, and welcome back, Luis, of course. Welcome, Tommy. Converse.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Lovely introduction as always. Tommy, man, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, man. We every week we get together, you know, with different people, and we just geek out about stuff. We always start by saying, you know, we really don't know anything about what we're talking about. That's why we rely on people like you. You know, we can be just serious enough to pretend and make people believe that we know, but you know, we really rely on people like you to talk about complicated subjects. But you know, before that, I just want to give you, you know, a quick opportunity if you want to say, you know, hello everybody, or welcome, or hello mom, anything that you want. Just go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm super excited about being part of the show with you guys. I really love what you guys are doing, like the whole aspect of pulling the whole community together and really kind of opening up the conversation to a broader audience is always fun. So thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's really cool. And yeah, people don't know this about you because, you know, it's a funny thing. Every time we talk about, you know, money or private money, people tend to think, you know, like Wall Street, etc. They don't know that you live in lovely Rochester, for example. So,
Yes.
So what is it like, man? Why are you living in Rochester? Have you always lived there, or you've been moving around?
Man, I've been all over the place lately, but you know, the home roots has kind of sucked me back. This is where I grew up, tiny little town just south of Rochester, Avon, if anybody knows Western New York. I always joke that you can't come into town without going through a cow field or a corn pasture, or a cow pasture or a cornfield, right? You know, you just gotta, it's farmland out here and I love it. So it's a good pace of life. And we just moved back from, I was in Utah, Salt Lake City for the last 12 years. And, you know, as much as I love Rochester, I miss the blue skies of the West, the Mountain West. You know, there's nothing better than just a bluebird powder day after a nice snowstorm, but here it's just slushy and nasty and covered in salt all the time. So you got to take what you get.
Man, you should work for the tourism bureau somehow, man. I think you can put together some nice flyers for people.
Yeah.
But I remember now, you mentioned that you are living in the house where you grew up, you know, after going around and back. What is that like?
Yeah, we just bought my parents' house, so we're I guess I timed it right because my brother and my sister missed the opportunity, and I moved back just in the right time. My parents were looking to downsize, and I was next in line to get the house. So here we are. Very happy.
Man, that is so cool. I mean, I remember when you told me about it, I was thinking like, would I do that? You know, would I go back to buy the house where I grew up? You know, there's a lot of you know, ghosts in there, so I don't know, but you know, we're doing this you know, electrification thing in Ithaca, and would you do that to your house, your childhood house? You know, would that be a thing that you consider there?
Say that again.
I mean, would you consider electrifying your childhood home and, you know, doing everything that we're trying to do here in Ithaca? Would you do it in your actual house?
Yeah, man, we're actually this spring we're putting in geothermal because our 30-year-old gas boiler furnace is on the fritz, so we needed to do something. And we're taking the long view here. This is my forever home, right? This is where I'll hopefully lay my hat when when 100 years old, and this is it. So we're actually putting in geothermal this spring. Which works out great because when my dad actually built this house, which is part of the reason why it's so important. So he built this house at nights after work, laying block and doing all the wood. So he was pretty forward thinking guy back then, and he put all radiant heat through the house. And so we've got a pretty good setup here. And yes, we're doing the geo, and then we're gonna top that off with some solar. Whether we get to that next year or not, that's definitely on the roadmap here.
Man, that sounds really, really cool. Now you're gonna have to have me over. I need to check it out.
Yeah, no, we got a good spot, good sunset, sunset watching on the porch. So it's a good spot to have a cocktail.
Well, definitely, I'll be there for sure. So, I want to ask you because there has been a lot of noise around the Ithaca Electrification program, and it's a funny thing because we've been all every single municipality has been thinking about strategies to remove fossil fuels from the city, from the town, the village. And, we decided to go bold and, start a program that will take over the entire city. Initially it's going to be, a voluntary program, and probably, in several years, we're talking about, probably state legislation or federal legislation. But in the meantime, we needed to create some sort of incentive for people, to participate. And that goes for businesses, that goes for residential buildings also. So what do you think? I mean, let me start from the very beginning, from the very top. Is this something that we can use with private capital? Because people tend to think, this is something that the government should do, but there is not enough money there. So is private capital a real alternative? And what is the catch there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the short answer is absolutely. We look at this as an opportunity to take a community approach to the decarbonization of an entire city, right? And that's the great thing about what you guys have kind of put together within the community, is that everybody's kind of seeing this big picture, and we're going to really position it as, hey, come be a part of this program, be a part of this solution that's going to help drive, efficiency and decarbonization at scale, not only in the city of Ithaca, because as you know full well, hundreds of other cities, now that this is kind of on the radar, are reaching out and saying, hey, how can you guys help us do this with our own city? And we're really looking forward to scaling this out. But if we were to put the onus on every business owner, every homeowner to prioritize in their own financial budgets, that people are saving for college, to spend 30 grand on sending their kid to college, let alone put it in a solar system or electrifying their house. That's not the top priority for a family budget, right? So that we need private capital to come in and help kind of get the momentum going, kind of just make that investment up front, which is the biggest hurdle to get these technologies deployed. The good news is everybody's already paying for this, right? In our monthly budgets, we all have a power bill, a gas bill, a water bill, and in an inefficient old house like right now what we have, it's expensive, right? So we've kind of already set the bar of spending $100 or $200 a month on powering our homes. If we can just reallocate that exact money that we're already spending into efficiency technology, it generates the savings pay for it all, out of the program. So that's where private capital can really come in and help accelerate everything, by making that big upfront investment and then just giving an easy way for people to participate by just taking a portion of their already current utility spend and redirecting it over to this new we call it the transition to the new energy economy, right? Like there's a transitioning happening, and private capital enables that, right? If like a city can't go out and out of a tax base fund everything that needs to happen, you really need to bring in external resources to make things like this happen. And we're here. We see it as a great opportunity to help, and we're excited about it.
Well, man, this is cool. Thanks for that explanation. But it is still complicated, because we don't think in those terms, like a lot of people think about, this is how much money I make. As long as it doesn't go over X, I can afford it. But then having this commitment, I mean, what you are suggesting is that, we're going to continue paying the same. So who's taking the risk? Like, why are you taking on the risk on behalf of an entire city, for example? I mean, what's
Sure.
in it for you here?
Yeah, no. So that's the thing is like, again, we were set up to take on that risk. We invest in this energy infrastructure so that customers don't have to, right? Like we kind of take that on. That's our whole business model. The more energy efficiency technology and renewable energy technology we get out into the world, the more money we make at the end of the day. So that's how we make our capital, return on capital, is by investing in these technologies, allowing a way for people to just pay for it over time, kind of pay for it as you use it, versus this big upfront cost that stares down most of these projects and doesn't enable anything to happen. So we're happy to take on that risk. That's what we were built to do. And the opportunities like this, where we can come in and do it at scale, where it's not just one building owner or one homeowner trying to do something and somebody wants to go green. It's really pushing a narrative of, hey, we're a whole community coming together to take advantage of this transition, to create jobs, to create economic justice, if you will, in terms of including more of the broader population in this transition. And it unfortunately, it does take a big upfront cost in order to kind of get the wheels moving, but that's what we're built to do. And we're happy to be a part of it and just get this program enabled.
Man, this is so awesome, because the one thing that I need to recognize is that this requires an entire different mindset. You need to think about it in a very different way from the way our parents thought about it, from the way we actually thought about it. And I was just thinking the other day that you and I have been talking a lot in the past 8 months, I would say. Yeah. But you and I didn't know each other a year ago, and actually out of the 100 people involved in the electrification program right now in its implementation, we didn't know each other. So how do you do this? We're talking about incredible amounts of money, and there is an element of trust. So what made you trust the city of Ithaca and the community that you could take on this project, that you could take the risk away from people so they could afford energy efficiency and electrification? I mean, how does this work from a risk and trust perspective? Because I mean, I find it fascinating, to be honest, and I am very grateful that you trusted us as a community. But I need to ask, man, how does that even happen?
Well, again, there's a program here that you guys have built at the city that has all the stakeholders are as a part of this process, right? Not one group is going to make this happen at the end of the day. You've got the city that's said, hey, we're going to put this goal out there, and we're going to pull together the partners that can bring in the capital, bring in the technology, bring in the experts to help actually implement these projects. But then you've got NYSERDA, who's helping to assist on the back end and working with the different grants and rebates and buckets of money that they can work with to help and deploy this project. You've got NYSEG, the utility, which is the backbone of it all, right? Everything happens on top of the utility at the end of the day. They're a part of this. So when you get everybody kind of working together, driving towards the same goal, it's just going to happen. I mean, you got to have, are we taking a little bit of a leap of faith that this is something that we can tackle? Sure. It hasn't really been done before, right? Like we're building the blueprint to do this, but when you have everybody kind of working together and going towards the same goals, big things can happen, and we're excited about it. Nothing's guaranteed at the end, right? Anything could happen, but that's part of big change. You got to take risks up front, and just have a belief in the overall program and in the vision for what's going to happen over the next 10, 15 years. And just got to will it into existence.
Man, and that is kind of cool, because we always say this, all those people that have somehow affected the world in a positive way, and in a permanent way. Nobody started out with an idea that was mediocre at best, right? I mean, everybody's just shooting for the stars and trying to make something happen. But we hear the stories that were successful, right? But we don't hear about all the guys that tried and eventually didn't succeed. So it's a very interesting position for the city to be in, and honestly, it's kind of stressful at times to think about it, man, we need to make this work. But the way I think about it is, if we make it work, we're changing lives, and you more or less address this, like from a social justice point of view, if we could make a difference for people on the low income bracket, and have their buildings be better, from a thermal comfort point of view, and also in general air quality, and having a better place to live, But let's talk about businesses then, and commercial buildings. We've been talking about that, and we're making that important distinction between residential and commercial buildings. And you visited Ithaca, we were having a beer, like a few weeks ago here in Ithaca, and you had a chance to take a look at what we have here. So what do you think, is it what you imagine, when we're talking about, doing, electrifying commercial buildings, is this what you had in mind? Is it different? What do you think in general about the possibilities and the work ahead?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I always believed in the idea of, if a mind can conceive it, then you can achieve it, right? If you can think of the idea, then it is possible to actually put it into practice and make it work at the end of the day. Driving into Ithaca, and I'm sorry to say that was the first time I've ever been to Ithaca, even though I grew up an hour and a half away. I've never actually been down there until a few weeks ago. And driving in, it's like, holy cow, okay, this is a lot. Like, how are we going to get this done? But the reality is, you just kind of, you got to scale back and see the big vision. But then at the end of the day, you have to go back, and it is a building by building, conversation by conversation, education to each individual to kind of help them understand and wrap their heads around, like, we can't keep doing what we've been doing. We have to make this transition to this new energy grid, and how we power and use energy and generate energy overall. And you have to take it one building at a time, right? But you have to have that momentum to where once a couple buildings get moving, and that's the early adopters, the ones that are really kind of, forward thinking, and like members of the 2030 district, they've already said, hey, we're committed to reducing our emissions by 50%, even before the Ithaca Green New Deal was passed. Like, these are the kind of building owners that are going to really pave the way and say, this is how we did it. We leveraged outside capital to implement these technologies. These are the results we've seen. And then as soon as those projects get completed, more and more people are just going to say, oh, that looked easy. Like, we can do that as well. But you have to go building by building, but still kind of keep that big picture in mind. And it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And, anything is possible. At the end of the day, even if there wasn't a program in place, every building would eventually get there. We're just kind of helping provide that platform to get there faster.
Well, and that is important, because I think we all agree, at least all of us, involved in the climate change movement. I think we all understand the sense of urgency. I mean, this needs to happen sooner rather than later. It's going to be expensive. Maybe some technologies are not mature enough. We have no choice. We need to test them out. But at the same time, we're talking about people's livelihoods. We're talking about, people's mortgages. We're talking about, the community buildings. So I really think that we need to be careful. So when we talk about this, with the community, and we try to, present to them what we're doing from a financial point of view, it gets really complicated.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we could find a way of, simplify this, not too much, but enough so people can actually follow. So why don't we start there? Let me ask you this question using an example. So I have a building, I'm a business owner. I'm in this building, commercial building, and, I sell ice cream, and I have a bakery, in the same building. So, my energy needs are different for the two sides of the business, but I pay the bill, the consolidated bill. And also, I need to have a place where people can be comfortable when they come, and so there are a number of issues that have to do with energy. So how would you go about that? I mean, how would you convince me that, it is good to do what you are suggesting, and that it is good to do with the money that you're bringing to the table, so I don't have to, cover the upfront costs? So how would you go about that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Rebecca, am I able to share my screen? I think it's helpful if I kind of talk through this with a little bit of a visual assistance, if that's okay. I don't know if I'm able to do that or not.
You should be able to now. Go ahead and try.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so can you see my screen?
I can see it, yeah.
All right, so this is the best way I can help, kind of visualize what's happening here, right? And this all starts from kind of like the steps that we would put in place to go ahead and achieve like these 2030 goals, not only at the community level, but this is how we would walk through like a business owner or even a homeowner as to how we get there, right? First, we want to say, here's where you are today, right? Like, let's set the baseline. Here's how much your building is consuming in energy. Here's how much natural gas it's using. Here's the total cost that it costs you to power your building now. So everybody kind of has like that starting point to think from, right? Like we're saying, okay, I can wrap my head around over the last 2 years, on average, I've used X number of kilowatt hours, X number of therms, and it costs, let's just use a business example. It costs me $1,000 a month to run my building, right? Then we're going to go in and hire a local trade allies. You know, again, we want to empower local businesses to be a part of this and again, create the jobs. So we're going to hire the local contractors, trade allies to go in, do a building audit, say, okay, here's the lighting system they have. Here's the HVAC and cooling system that they have. What can we now put together in terms of all the technology that we have available and build a package for this specific building that's going to reduce the overall energy, reduce the overall emissions, and then come up with a funding package for that one particular building owner that says, okay, now we can implement all these technologies and do it in a way that's affordable to you guys, right? And to help kind of like visualize that, so let's just say like this big graph, black bar is kind of like, here's your total utility spend right now. And again, let's just assign this $1,000 a month. We, as Alturus or Block Power on the residential and multifamily side, would be coming in and helping and working with the local trade allies, again, to identify what projects could be done and come up with that roadmap. Let's just say we do a lighting upgrade. We put in a new electrification system for the building, for, you know, the electric heat pumps. We've put in an energy control system that helps kind of, you know, better run the equipment that's in the building to regenerate these savings. So now we've implemented all this technology. We upfronted the cost of all of it, which might call it $30,000 or $25,000 or $50,000 that now the building owner doesn't have to go out and spend, or the homeowner doesn't have to go out and come up with that cost to implement these technologies. We did that. So now that utility spend went from 1,000 to let's just call it 500. We were able to reduce the usage by 50% through efficiencies, right? Out of the remaining $500 that we're now saving them, that's where our payment comes out of, right? So now it's saying we're going to take 300 of the 500, and that's going to pay for the technology that we just implemented into the program, right? So over the term, again, it's going to be kind of adjusted depending on what the needs are. For cost savings that the building owner wants to see. If they want to get it done quicker, we'll do a 3-year term. You know, they just want to get it done and not have a payment for a long time. Or in a lot of cases, they're just like, listen, I know I'm going to be paying my utility bill. I'm basically renting my power for forever. You know, it's not like NYSEG is going to come to them and say, hey, you've paid enough. Don't worry about it. You can stop paying us. Like, that utility bill never goes away, right? So they just want to save as much money as possible right now. And we structure a term that's going to have them the most immediate cost savings, which makes it easy for them to say yes to, right? Because now they're seeing an actual economic value add. And now their building is on that road to full decarbonization. So we've got the efficiency, the electrification, and then, you know, a few years down the road, let's start looking at rooftop solar or community solar and kind of just, you know, buying the power from a green source that's local. And all of that can be rolled up into what we call our ESA payment, our energy services agreement. And out of that, over time, the more and more technology we deploy, the less they're actually going to be spending on their, you know, utility bill, and the more savings are going to be generating long term. So that's kind of how we kind of like frame it up for a building owner is, hey, again, let's go back to where you were in 2022, right when we started this program. You were spending $1,000 a month. Over time, we've deployed this much technology. Your payments gone from 1,000 to now your building only costs $800 a month, for example, to power it. But it's much cleaner. It's running off of local energy sources. That's kind of the game plan. That's the roadmap to help these business owners get there.
And Tommy, this is fantastic. I mean, that visualization really allows us to understand what you're talking about. But I think when you look at it, this sculpted, financial, payments that you have. I mean, does that mean that people need to have, a credit score X to participate in this, or how are we going to do this? I mean, is there any way that you can allow for everybody to participate, or what are the requirements for people to be part of this?
Yeah, great question. Historically, if we're going to go into a small to medium business that's been open for 3 years, they're kind of just getting started. That's really hard to underwrite for a long-term unsecured loan, right? We're not taking a lien on the building or anything like that. So if they go out of business, then that's part of the risk that we took up front. So again, part of this whole community package that you guys are putting together in this bigger picture of like moving Ithaca from a status quo city to the city of the future, that's where NYSERDA coming in, the Department of Energy is interested in helping support these types of programs. So we're really working with those groups to help create what we call like a loan loss reserve, or some credit enhancement, which would kind of help us de-risk the overall investment, across a broader scope of a group of people or a group of businesses. And that'll enable many more businesses to be able to participate in this program, just because there's a support from the overall community program. So if one business, for example, might go out of business, that happens, right? That's just reality. It's going to be supported on a broader level throughout the program, which will enable everybody to kind of participate up front, which is obviously the most important part right now.
So you really are thinking about it from a holistic point of view. So you are thinking about all the different elements that will provide, as you said, great enhancements for people to participate in these. And
right.
So is there a limit, are you going to say like, oh no, this is just too expensive, we're not going to work with you? Or what are we talking about here? Because I think people are interested in, perhaps if it's not too expensive to change light bulbs or to do something, but some others might be, expecting to have a full transformation to make it really efficient. And from the image that you just shared with us, I think it shows that it would pay to do the whole thing, So how do you see that? How do you approach this with building owners and commercial building owners?
Yeah, same. To steal the same word from you, is that holistic picture, right? We're not here to try to sell lighting because we're a lighting company. We're not here to sell HVAC because we're an HVAC company. We're not here to do this. It's like, what technologies just make sense that are going to get you from here to the goal, right? Which is full decarbonization. How do we stack those up to, the lighting retrofit is going to have probably the most overall impact and savings. And that's going to help kind of pay for some of those more expensive technologies like electrification. Electrification has a much longer payback cycle, just because you're transferring how you're heating the house, for example, or heating the building from a gas powered, which is cheap source of energy, right? Natural gas is a cheap source of energy. So switching that to electric can be a little bit more expensive when you look at it on just that one siloed piece of technology. But if we're stacking everything together and kind of building that overall value proposition to say, hey, we can implement not just the HVAC electrification, but lighting, controls, all those things together are going to now make the overall project pencil, meaning that it's going to be cost neutral or better to the building owner. That's the goal. And we may find that some buildings are just not able to get to that saving money off of this full electrification. It might cost a little bit more, but again, in the overall grand scheme of things, like the goal of the city is not necessarily to save money, it's to be decarbonized, right? And I think a lot of building owners are just going to want to jump on board to do that as part of the overall mission, even if it costs them a little bit more. But our goal is to help them, build that package that's going to not impact their overall monthly budget and operational expenses. We want to keep that neutral so that it's an easy way for them to participate.
Well, we've been going, tiptoeing around this, but we need to make this distinction. There is the building owner and then there is the business owner. And so who do you sell these to? Because I think the business owner would be the one paying the bills, but the changes may require the building owner to be on board. So how do you approach this? Who do you negotiate with? How do you present this offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Ithaca is a unique beast as well, where most buildings in the city are leased, right? The landlord is not necessarily the building or the business owner within that building, right? The business owner is renting that space. So the building, that's where we get into the split incentive. Before, a lot of times the building owner doesn't want to make that investment because they're not the ones seeing the energy savings at the end of the day. There's not necessarily a return on investment to the building owner because they're not actually saving any money on the utility bill. The business owner says, well, it's not my building. Why do I want to spend $50,000 on this building? Even though I'm going to be here for a while, but I might leave in 3 years. My lease is up in 5 years. Like, why would I do this? And that's where we kind of create that program where we make the investment on behalf of both parties. If the business moves out, this can easily transfer to the next business that comes in, and it just becomes kind of part of the overall utility package, right? So you've got the power bill, but now you've got the efficiency package that goes along with the new tenants that kind of come and go. And at the end of the day, call it 7 to 10 years from now, we've fully electrified the building, we've implemented solar, we've done all these things that the building needs, and then that payment eventually goes away, and everybody's we got that building to the place that it needs to be. And the people that are benefiting from it are not only the building owner long term, because now their value of their building might go up because it's more energy efficient, but the business owner is happy as well because it reduced their overall operating expenses from $1,000 a month to less or equal. But again, they're all participating in that transition to a decarbonized economy in Ithaca.
Man, that is so cool. I was just thinking, there is, I think you mentioned, you're putting geothermal in your house, and that made me think, because here in the city, people are talking about air source heat pumps, CO2 heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, and they're talking about district heating, for example. So I think, if I understand correctly, what Alturus can do is, go building by building, but probably we could get a bundle of buildings and talk about district system perhaps for downtown, or, is that also something that you guys are considering?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we're kind of taking what's the best approach for either a single building, or if there's a solution that we can wrap in like a block of buildings that say, hey, maybe we do one big giant geothermal well, right, that can feed all of these buildings and kind of spread the cost of that, because that's the biggest cost in any kind of geothermal, is actually like drilling the well. So if every building owner doesn't have to go out and drill a 700 foot well, and we can kind of come up with a program that works, we could kind of make like almost like a little micro grid, if you will, between the thermal energy load, and then we've got, we're maximizing the roof space of that block for solar. We've got maybe a shared battery pack between those buildings. So it's gonna kind of evolve as we move through this. But from the efficiency side of things, that's all done on a building by building basis, right? When we get into generating energy or generating geothermal energy, that can be spread across multiple buildings. And that's probably like more like phase 2 of this transition. Phase 1 is like, let's reduce before we produce, right? So everybody's building, let's make it the most efficient it can possibly be. And then let's start looking at how we generate the energy for those buildings, and those conversations would move in that direction.
That is so cool. One of the things, because we're talking about full electrification of the city, and every time we present it and they ask like, so why are you electrified? We go like everything, whatever it is that uses heat right now, we can turn it into an electric load. And then people start asking about induction ranges, for example, like can we actually change cooktops? I mean, is that something that you can actually do for restaurants, or for individuals? I mean, are you also looking into that?
Yeah, no, and that's the great thing about our approach, is that we're kind of technology agnostic. So it's if a restaurant needs a specific piece of technology, but it's going to help them get to that goal, we'll wrap that into the program, right? You might have one restaurant, and then right next door or across the street, you might have a manufacturing facility that has really inefficient motors and pumps and things like that. We can upgrade motors and pumps within that warehouse while we're doing a heat recovery system in like the air, the exhaust fan of a restaurant. There's different technologies that are for different vertical markets that can all be a part of the program. It just depends on, and again, that's where we're going to rely on a lot of the local expertise. Like, Tatum Engineering, I know, is going to be a huge player in this Ithaca market, and they've been in every building pretty much in Ithaca already. They kind of know what's going on, and just kind of knowing what technologies are out there, like that are going to be the most relevant to each individual building. That's how we're going to get there. So it's not like they have to use this one technology. They're only allowed to do this. They're only allowed to do that. It's really, we're taking a building by building approach and saying, hey, what makes the most sense for your building? This is what we're going to go ahead and install. This is how we're going to roll it out via payment plan for you guys, so that there is no upfront cost. So that's the exciting part. I mean, we're going to, as the years go on, new technology becomes available, as we know. It's going to be great to see what actually, gets installed at the end of the day, because it's kind of still to be determined.
Well, yeah. And I think, we need to appreciate, the business that you're in, because on one hand, we have this tendency to believe that, financial services, are, greedy people, or people that are interested only in making money. And it's very rare to talk to somebody like you where, the justification to be in the business that you are is because you want a better world. It's such a strange thing. And the fact that you have to take on the risk on behalf of others. And that is not something that people consider. And I know it's really hard because, you associate people with money with a different thing. But for example, I believe that, if you were to do this with a business, and then the business, for any reason, like let's say COVID, like it goes out of business, what happens with that arrangement that you had? I mean, like, can you talk about that, for example?
Yeah, I mean, again, these are all unsecured loans, right? We don't have any real collateral that we can, like, we're not going to go into a building and take lights out and try to sell them to their neighbor, right? Like it stays there. And if in the unfortunate circumstance where a business goes out of business and they claim bankruptcy, we just get in line with everybody else that business owes money to, right? We don't own the building, we can't resell it or anything like that. That's just kind of the risk that we take. So we kind of have to just go through the legal process at that point, for anything that might be owed long term. But again, the way that we would set this up is assuming that building does go back to another building owner or a tenant occupied space, we can kind of just transfer that back over to the new tenant. So there's ways for us to recover our investments, but there is going to be some fallout. I mean, that's just reality, No,
and I think we need to expect that. I mean, unfortunately, that's a reality of, still the economic shock, from the pandemic is there. We're still feeling it. A lot of businesses are trying to, do their best to survive. Unfortunately, some of them will not make it. Some of them will, and we'll continue building and rebuilding our community. I think I have one last question, and this is something that has come up, so many times when we talk to business owners. They don't want their business to be interrupted by this. So whenever you're doing something, as dramatic as, the entire thing, the whole enchilada, are they expected to, to stop the business for a week, for a couple of weeks, or how does that work? I mean, in your experience, can you actually do that without shutting down the business for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of the overall planning aspect of, how do we make this building transition, right? All the contractors that are in this space are used to working nights, right? So a lot of times you go in after hours to do a lighting upgrade, so we're not having ladders in the middle of a hallway or something like that. So a lot of that will be done after hours. If it's in like a production facility, for example, that they just can't shut down, right? Like they can't shut down for whatever reason. We work with the facilities and the production line managers to kind of understand what's a good time. Like, when do you get, there are always some sort of like week that we have like a 1 week window to get in there and make the swap out. So we would coordinate with them so that there isn't a business interruption, because at the end of the day, if we had to shut a business down for a month to go out and do all this stuff, that would cost them more money than it would in savings, right? So we really have to work with them and plan accordingly.
Wow, man, this is so cool. And I can't thank you enough, for trusting the city of Ithaca, the community, to come in and invest, in the future, because I love how you put it earlier, the city of the future. Every so often I talk about Ithaca as, the electric city of the future, because that's where we have to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, for a really long time, we've been, measuring success based on GDP. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter what type of industries we have, but, changing everything, our relationship with the world, with nature, with the economy, with the community, it's all about mindset. And, it's wonderful to see that, we have people, activists on the ground that are fighting for a better future, trying to, move away from fossil fuels. And then you have the financial layer, the people looking at how can we make this happen for communities like Ithaca. So it really is, just a big thank you, I believe, on behalf of everybody in this city. And we do have a lot of work to do, Tommy. I think we're at the very beginning of the electrification program.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be partners for a really long time. We're going to be married for a while, man. So I think you're going to be sick
That's
of
all
hearing
right.
from Ithacanos. But, I really hope we also do our part. And, people engage, people participate, and we make this worth everybody's time. So thank you for that. I don't know. Do you want to, we have a couple of minutes left for a couple of comments. You should know, some people are watching live right now, but some people will, eventually watch this. So this is going to stay
Sure.
for prosperity, man. So you want to leave your message there so your kids and your grandkids can look at it eventually, please go ahead. What would be that?
Yeah, no, man, it's a crazy time that we're in right now, right? Like we are up against the clock, if you will, in terms of how quickly we actually have to make this transition. And that's really where, again, kind of back to our beginning of our conversation, we need these external resources to come in and just dump the capital needed in, take that long-term risk, take that long-term vision on getting that all repaid or whatever. But we have to make this transition. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? So that's where having this community type engagement and everybody kind of moving towards a common goal is going to make this happen. I joke that my kids are never going to drive a car in their life. Like they're literally just going to get into a car in 10 years. They're 5 and 7 right now, and they're just going to hit a button and it's going to take them there. That's a different infrastructure that's needed in order for that to happen. And it's not there right now, right? I envision the city of Ithaca and other cities kind of, once we kind of build this blueprint to where it's going to be like a very micro grid type of situation where a whole city is kind of supported by local resources, like a local community solar farms, local battery storage, local, I would really love to start having discussions about expanding hydropower within Ithaca, because you guys have that amazing hydro resource right there. Again, just how do we what if we were to start over or wave a magic wand, like what would we do that would make this like the most future ready, resilient city? Because unfortunately we are going to see more and more dramatic weather, and we live in upstate New York. Anything is possible, right? One ice storm away from a complete disaster. And if we can kind of build the cities to be resilient to those events, then that would be a win, right? And doing it in a way that's renewable energy, we're eliminating emissions, which is what we have to get to in 30 years globally. So you think about all the buildings that are built now and all the buildings that are going to be built, we have to have that big end picture in mind while we're working towards this. So I think Ithaca is like the perfect breeding ground for this. You've got a community that's behind it. And, the city is big enough to where it makes a big impact, but it's small enough to where we can actually wrap our heads around and really understand how do we make this work, and now take that and just go city by city by city by city and show other companies like ourselves and other groups that this is how we did it, because it's going to take more than what Alturus can do, right? We're going to need other companies to do the same exact thing, and we're happy to show the way.
Yeah, well, man, I think you just told a bunch of Ithacans that their city is awesome. They already believe that, so now they're gonna be unbearable. But it's kind of cool. Talking about one of those Ithacans, Rebecca just rejoined the conversation. So
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you both so much for doing this. You know, Tommy, we mentioned that you are proof that not all heroes wear capes, and maybe after this, the city of Ithaca really owes you an emblazoned city of Ithaca cape. But seriously, thank you both so much for taking the time to do this today. And at the very beginning of this, I think one of our viewers, Ethan, wrapped this up really nicely and said geek power. So I'm going to leave us all with that. And thanks, everybody. And we will see you next time.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for the opportunity.